You clicked on this video for a reason. Not by accident. Not because you were bored. Not because the algorithm randomly placed it in front of you. Because the words in the title hit something deep inside you. You have a secret, baby, and before you dismiss that sentence, before you laugh, before you say, "That's impossible," stay with me, because what you're about to hear is not what you think. This story begins with a secret so carefully hidden, so perfectly buried, that even the people involved believed it would never come to light. But secrets have a strange habit. They wait, they grow, they gather weight, and one day they return, usually when nobody is prepared, especially you. The first sign appears in a way that seems meaningless. A message, a name, a photograph, a strange feeling you cannot explain. You brush it off. You tell yourself you reimagining things. Yet the feeling refuses to leave. Something is changing. Something is moving behind the scenes. And somewhere, someone has been searching for you. Not for days. Not for weeks. For years. The story you're about to hear centers around a child. A child connected to you through circumstances nobody could have predicted. A child whose existence was kept hidden, protected, guarded, locked away from the world, including from you. But why? That's the question. Why would anyone hide something so important? The answer begins many years ago, at a moment that seemed insignificant. A decision, a conversation, a relationship, a crossroads where multiple lives changed direction forever. Back then nobody understood the consequences. Nobody saw the future. Nobody imagined what would happen next. Life moved on. People separated. Cities changed. Phone numbers disappeared. Memories faded. And eventually everyone convinced themselves the chapter was over. Finished. Gone. Except it wasn't. Because every unfinished story leaves traces. Tiny fingerprints across time. Clues waiting to be discovered. And lately, those clues have started appearing. One after another. Faster and faster. Until ignoring them became impossible. The first clue came through an old photograph. Nothing unusual at first glance. Just an image from years ago. But hidden inside it was something strange. Someone noticed a resemblance. Not a small resemblance. An undeniable resemblance. The kind that makes people stop talking. The kind that makes a room suddenly feel silent. The kind that raises questions nobody wants to answer. Questions like, who is this child? Why do they look so familiar? And why does their face seem connected to someone they have never met? At first everyone dismissed it. Coincidence. Pure coincidence. Except coincidences don't usually happen repeatedly. And this one kept happening. Different people. Different locations. Different moments. Yet the same observation emerged again and again. The resemblance. The connection. The mystery. And every time it surfaced, someone became uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. Because they knew something. Something they had spent years trying to forget. Meanwhile, the child grew older. Without knowing the truth. Without knowing the missing pieces. Without understanding why certain questions never received answers. Children notice more than adults think. They sense tension. They recognize hesitation. They see the expressions people try to hide. And eventually curiosity begins. Where do I come from? Why is this information missing? Why does nobody want to discuss it? Those questions became stronger with every passing year, until one day, the child decided to search independently. That decision changed everything. Records were checked, names were compared, dates were examined, and suddenly, a trail appeared, a trail leading toward a person who had absolutely no idea they were being investigated. Now imagine this. You reliving your normal life, handling responsibilities, facing challenges, making plans, completely unaware that somewhere another human being is gathering pieces of a puzzle whose final piece is your name. Would you recognize the signs? Would you notice? Most people wouldn't. That's why stories like this become so shocking. Because life-changing revelations rarely announce themselves. They arrive quietly, then explode. And that's exactly what happened. One evening a document surfaced. Not a dramatic document. Not a classified file. Just a simple piece of information. But information can be powerful. Dangerously powerful. Because once truth enters the room, lies lose their strength. Suddenly timelines matched. Locations matched. Events matched. And what once seemed impossible started looking very possible. People who had remained silent for years began feeling pressure. Pressure from facts. Pressure from questions. Pressure from a truth approaching like a storm. Some wanted to confess. Others wanted to run. Others still believed they could stop the truth from emerging. But time was no longer on their side. The child kept searching, kept asking, kept digging. And every answer uncovered two new questions. The mystery grew larger, not smaller. Then came the moment nobody expected. A meeting. Not face to face. Not yet, but close. A near encounter. The kind that sends chills down your spine once you realize its significance. Two lives crossed paths. Briefly. Without recognition, without awareness, without understanding what had just happened. Yet fate had moved them one step closer to a revelation capable of changing everything. Because the deeper investigators looked, the clearer the picture became. This wasn't a rumor. This wasn't fantasy. This wasn't wishful thinking. There was something real here, something hidden, something waiting, and the people who knew the truth were running out of places to hide. Years of silence were collapsing. Years of secrecy were crumbling. Years of carefully constructed stories were beginning to crack. Then another clue emerged. A letter. Old. Forgotten. Never meant to be discovered. Inside were words that changed the entire narrative. Words proving that certain individuals had known much more than they admitted. Far more. Enough to explain the silence. Enough to explain the fear. Enough to explain why someone worked so hard to keep certain people apart. The letter raised a disturbing possibility. What if the separation wasn't accidental? What if it had been intentional from the very beginning? What if someone believed they were protecting everyone involved? Or perhaps, protecting themselves? That question became impossible to ignore. Because motives matter. Truth matters. And eventually every hidden motive leaves evidence behind. As the evidence accumulated, the emotional weight became overwhelming. Imagine discovering that your entire understanding of the past was incomplete. Imagine realizing that major pieces of your story had been removed. Imagine learning that someone else has spent years searching for answers connected to you. How would you react? Anger? Shock? Disbelief? Relief? The truth is nobody knows until it happens. And by now, the moment was approaching. Fast. Much faster than anyone expected. People who once felt secure became nervous. People who once controlled the narrative lost control. People who once believed the secret would die with them began facing reality. Reality doesn't negotiate. Reality arrives. And when it arrives, everything changes. The final breakthrough came unexpectedly. As breakthroughs often do. A detail overlooked for years. A tiny inconsistency. A missing piece. The moment it was discovered, the entire puzzle locked together. Every question suddenly had context. Every mystery suddenly had explanation. Every silence suddenly made sense. And there it was, the truth, standing in plain sight. Impossible to deny. Impossible to erase. Impossible to hide. The secret baby. The hidden connection. The years of separation. The unanswered questions. The search. The evidence. The revelation. All converging into one unforgettable moment. A moment that would permanently divide life into two chapters. Before the truth. And after the truth. Because once something like this becomes known, nothing returns to normal. Relationships change. Identities shift. Perspectives transform. People see themselves differently. They see others differently. They see the past differently. And perhaps most importantly, they see the future differently. But here's what nobody tells you. The greatest shock isn't discovering the secret. The greatest shock is realizing how many signs existed all along. The moments that suddenly make sense. The strange coincidences. The unexplained feelings. The unanswered questions. The missing information. The odd reactions. The hidden tension. The clues were everywhere. Scattered across years. Waiting. Patiently. For the day someone would finally connect them. And now, that day has arrived. The secret is no longer a secret. The child is no longer just a mystery. The search is no longer unfinished. The truth is finally stepping into the light. And for everyone involved, a brand new chapter is about to begin. A chapter nobody expected. A chapter nobody prepared for. A chapter that started with a secret, and ended with a revelation powerful enough to change multiple lives forever. Because sometimes the biggest story of your life is the story you never knew existed, until it found you. The revelation should have ended the story. That's what everyone expected. Once the truth surfaced. Once the missing pieces finally aligned. Once the hidden connection became impossible to deny. Surely everything would make sense. Surely everyone would feel relief. Surely the years of uncertainty would disappear. But that isn't what happened. In fact, the moment the truth emerged, a second mystery appeared. A far more dangerous one. Because while everyone focused on the existence of the child, almost nobody asked the question that mattered most. Who worked so hard to keep the secret buried? And why? That question changed everything. Because secrets don't hide themselves. People hide them. People protect them. People spend years constructing walls around them. And when investigators began looking at those walls, they discovered something deeply unsettling. Someone had been planning for this day, for years, long before anyone started searching, long before questions began, long before the truth started surfacing, almost as if they always knew the secret would eventually escape. The evidence was subtle. Tiny details, old conversations, missing records, strange decisions, small actions that seemed harmless individually, but together, they painted a disturbing picture. A picture of someone who wasn't merely hiding information, they were controlling it, carefully, methodically, relentlessly, and the deeper people dug, the stranger things became, because certain documents should have existed, yet they didn't. Certain photographs should have been available, yet they vanished. Certain names should have appeared, yet they were absent. Again, and again, and again. Coincidences have limits. Eventually patterns emerge, and when this pattern emerged, everyone became uncomfortable, especially the people who had been around from the beginning, because they recognized something. They recognized fear, not ordinary fear, the fear of exposure, the fear that comes when a carefully protected story begins falling apart. Meanwhile, the child continued asking questions, questions that nobody wanted to answer. Questions that cut directly through years of silence. Simple questions. Brutally simple. Questions like, who knew? Since when? Why wasn't I told? And perhaps the most painful question of all. Did anyone ever try to find me? That question landed like a thunderbolt. Because suddenly the discussion wasn't about secrets anymore. It was about choices, human choices, the choices people made, the choices people avoided, the choices that changed lives. Every answer carried consequences, every explanation created new emotions. And every emotion pushed everyone closer to a confrontation they could no longer avoid. Then something unexpected happened. A witness came forward. Not a dramatic witness. Not someone famous. Not someone powerful. Just an ordinary individual who happened to remember something. Something important. Something everyone else had forgotten. Or pretended to forget. At first nobody paid much attention, but then details started matching. Dates matched, locations matched, names matched, memories matched, and suddenly a forgotten voice became one of the most important voices in the entire story, because that witness revealed something shocking. Years ago, someone had tried to tell the truth. Someone had actually tried. They wanted the secret exposed. They wanted honesty. They wanted transparency. But they were stopped, silenced, ignored, pushed aside. The revelation stunned everyone, because it proved something critical. The separation wasn't inevitable. The years of confusion weren't unavoidable. Different choices could have changed everything. And once people understood that, anger entered the story. Real anger. Not loud anger. Not explosive anger. The quiet kind. The kind that sits inside your chest. The kind that grows stronger every time you think about what was lost. Years, memories, moments, experiences that could never be recovered. No matter what happened next, time had already taken them, and time never gives refunds. Yet even as emotions intensified, another twist emerged, a twist nobody saw coming. The child wasn't the only one searching. Someone else had been searching too, for years, quietly, secretly, without attracting attention. At first investigators assumed it was coincidence. Then evidence proved otherwise. This person had been tracking fragments of the same mystery, collecting information, saving records, following leads, almost obsessively. Why? What were they looking for? The answer was shocking. Because they weren't searching for the child. They were searching for you. And the moment that fact became known, everything changed again. Suddenly the story expanded. The secret was larger than anyone imagined. More people knew. More people were involved. More people carried pieces of the truth. The web stretched farther than expected, farther than anyone wanted to admit. And somewhere within that web, a final secret remained hidden. One last secret. The most important one. The secret that explained everything. Unfortunately, nobody knew what it was. Not yet. But clues existed. Tiny clues. Whispers. Fragments. Pieces scattered across years. Waiting to be assembled. The race began. Who would find the final answer first? The child? The investigators? The witnesses? Or the people still trying desperately to keep everything hidden? Nobody knew. What everyone did know was this. Time was running out. Because the story had started attracting attention. More attention than ever before. Questions were spreading. Rumors were growing. People were talking. And every new conversation brought fresh pressure. Pressure on the truth. Pressure on the secret keepers. Pressure on everyone involved. Then came a discovery so strange that many refused to believe it. An old box. Stored away. Forgotten. Untouched for years. Inside were items that appeared ordinary. Photographs. Receipts. Notes. Random fragments of a life. But hidden among them was something extraordinary. A name. A familiar name. A name nobody expected to find. Your name. Written years before anyone supposedly knew the truth. Silence followed. Long silence. The kind of silence that only appears when reality becomes difficult to process. Because that discovery raised a terrifying possibility. What if someone had known all along? Not suspected. Known. What if the truth wasn't hidden because people lacked information? What if it was hidden despite the information? That possibility changed the entire investigation. Now every memory was re-examined, every statement reconsidered, every explanation questioned, and the results were devastating. Inconsistencies appeared everywhere. Contradictions multiplied. Stories stopped matching. Timelines collapsed. The carefully maintained version of events began unraveling at incredible speed. The closer people moved toward the center of the mystery, the more resistance they encountered. Phone calls suddenly ended. Messages went unanswered. Certain individuals became impossible to reach. Others refused to discuss the topic entirely. The behavior spoke volumes. Because innocent people usually welcome truth, people with something to lose often don't. That realization pushed the investigation into its most intense phase yet. Nothing was accepted without evidence. Nothing was trusted automatically. Nothing was ignored. And eventually, the evidence pointed toward one unavoidable conclusion. The final secret was not about the child. The final secret was about motive. Why everything happened. Why everyone stayed silent. Why years passed. Why truths disappeared. Why lives diverged. Why the separation occurred. That answer remained hidden, but not for much longer. Because one individual possessed it. One person knew the complete story. One person understood everything. The beginning, the middle, the ending. And that person had finally agreed to speak. Not publicly, not yet, but privately. To reveal what really happened. To explain what everyone had misunderstood. To uncover the truth behind the truth. The meeting was arranged. The date was chosen. The anticipation became unbearable. Because everyone sensed the same thing. The story wasn't ending. It was entering its most explosive chapter. The chapter where motives would be revealed. The chapter where names would be spoken. The chapter where decades of silence would finally break. And if the witness was telling the truth, then what happened next would shock absolutely everyone, including you, especially you, because the final revelation wasn't just connected to the child. It was connected to something much larger, something nobody had considered, something capable of transforming the entire meaning of the story. A secret hidden behind an even bigger secret. A truth concealed behind another truth. And in the next chapter, that final door is about to open.